All right, we're going to try something different this week. You're going to kind of do an activity with me and we're going to record it. So for this one, you'll actually need some supplies, but hopefully I'm only going to be picking supplies that you actually have at your house. You'll need a piece of paper. It does not have to be a super fancy, pure blank white piece of paper like this. If you have a lined piece of paper or if you have something that was printed out before, that's totally fine. You're also going to need a pair of scissors. You probably have one of those, I hope. You will also need some tape, just a little bit. I was lucky and I found some actual clear tape in my house. But if you have some old masking tape, awesome. And if you can't find something that's tape-like, that's okay. You can kind of make do without it. But that's what you'll need. You also need like a pencil probably. And you'll also want some colors. I found some little skinny markers. If you have colored pencils, would probably be the best for this activity, but I couldn't find any in my house. So no worries about that. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to take this paper and we're going to do some cutting on it. And the investigation we're going to be looking at today is the spacing of the planets in our solar system. A lot of times people have some ideas about how they're spaced, and we're going to make a guess, and then you're going to put down the actual spacing as well, and we're going to see how close we are. So that's our plan. First, you're going to take this paper, and if you want to be fancy, you can fold it in half, but we're just going to cut it right down the middle. Actually, I think I'm going to be fancy for the video just because this way it'll be close. I'm going to do a little fold, not like crease it or anything, and I'm just going to use this as a guide to cut. Cool. And throughout the video, I'm not going to do a lot of editing. I'm not going to do any editing, to be honest. If I am going slow, if I'm coloring something, if I'm cutting something, feel free to skip ahead till I get to the next part. But if you cut along with me, you'll probably be able to stay in line. Now, is that perfect? No. Does it have to be? Not for this activity. If you want, you can do the same thing for these sides, but I don't really, it doesn't matter that much. So I'm just going to do my best to cut right down the center of these. Oh, I forgot to mention, we will be doing just a little bit of math with this too, because I know a lot of people have been saying, I wish I was doing more math at home. So I wanted to make sure to give you that opportunity. All right, now we have 4 identical-ish sheets of paper. And what you're going to do with these is we're actually going to make one long line with them. So I'm going to just take my first 2. I'm going to line them up. Ooh, you can see clearly I did not really make them the same, but it doesn't really matter for this activity. I'm just going to take a little piece of tape. And I find that if you kind of put them like that, just put a tape over it, boom. I got these 2 done. Then I'm going to move on to my next 2. I'm going to make one giant line, and this line of paper is going to be 4 times as long. Oops. And 4 times as thin as a normal sheet. As we're going. And my last one. Let's put the scissors here so that doesn't fall again. All right, so now we have this very long line of paper. I don't know if you can see it in my little screen up there, maybe a little bit. And what we'll do is this kind of represents our solar system. That means this is kind of the center on this side, and it kind of radiates outward. So if you think about it, this is the center, and it kind of spins all around with the other planets out there. So first we'll put the center of our solar system here, which is, I feel like I should call on someone, but it's just me here recording this. We're going to put, obviously, the sun. I was going to use orange. I could use like orange and yellow. So I'm going to add my little sun in here. Make it fancy, Mr. Dan is pretty fancy. Just kidding. And I'm going to label this the sun. I'm going to use a pen that works, though. That's a good idea. That way, you know, you guys can actually see it. The sun, you can kind of see it. It's a little bit out of focus. Well, that's what we got. And then the outermost we will use way on the other side over here. We are going to put a little dot. That's the same pen that isn't working. This is Pluto. I don't know if you can read that. But Pluto isn't a planet anymore, so there's actually a lot of little tiny things over here, and this is called, let me make sure I'm spelling it right. This is the Kuiper Belt. So I'm going to write it along the side. K-U-I, Kuiper Belt. And this is like the outer edge of what we typically consider our solar system. That means between the sun and between the Kuiper Belt, we have all of our other planets. And what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to find like a pencil or something a little bit lighter, and we're just going to make some guesses about where you think all those other planets are. So hopefully you can remember those planets. If not, you can look up our list and you can kind of see what they are. But we'll first start with the 3 rocky planets. So I know that there's like, I'm going to say there's Mercury. If you guys can see that. If I turn my little light off, is that easier to see? A little bit, maybe. We have Mercury. Then we have Venus. Now, these are my guesses. If you think something else, go ahead. I'm going to put Earth. And then I'm going to put Mars. And then after Mars, I don't know if you remember, there's that asteroid belt. Oh, that is a little blurry. Sorry. Let me just see real quick if I can make that any better. If I play with some video settings. Not really, sorry. Asteroid belt. Then after the asteroid belt, I have Jupiter. Then, I have a lot of space left. Oops. Then I have Uranus. And Neptune. And those are all of my planets that I've got. Now, maybe you disagree. Maybe you spread them out a little differently. Maybe you put them in different spots. That is totally fine. We are next going to look at where these planets really are in relation to each other. And then you're going to make some guesses and some observations on those things. Okay, the first thing we'll do is we're going to think of this whole piece of paper like one giant ruler. And we're going to find the halfway mark, which is actually kind of easy for us because it is right in the center of the 2 pieces, right? So if you have 2 pieces on each side, you will find that this is the halfway. And right in that halfway, I left the tape on my side, so I think I'm gonna flip mine over, and I'm gonna rewrite the actual positions on this side. It's actually a pretty good idea. So I'm gonna add my sun in again on one side. My sun. Then my Kuiper Belt. Way out on the other end, right over there. Okay, and now I have found the halfway point. And I'm going to put a half right there because I know that's about halfway through. And the planet that I'm going to put there, and this planet is kind of greenish actually, well, more like bluish, is the planet that is called Uranus, and it is right here about in the halfway mark. Between the Sun and the Kuiper Belt. Okay. Next, I'm going to go to the 3/4 mark. So that's one more paper this way. So I'm kind of like near the end, but I'm looking right here. And this time, I'm going to put the planet Neptune. What color is Neptune? Oh, Neptune's even bluer. Oops. It's a little smaller, though, I think. I'm going to put the planet Neptune. Okay. Got my halfway mark right here. Oh, I forgot a whole planet. Oops. On my example. Hopefully you caught that and you added it in. This is my quarter mark because I have my sun here. And this is a quarter in. And right here, I'm going to put... I'm going to make it a little orangish. I'm going to put Saturn. Saturn is very famous for those rings, so I'm going to do my best to put a little ring in here. I'm not sure how good it's going to be. Kinda, you can see it there. And then I have my Saturn at the 1/4 mark. I forgot to label my Uranus is at half. Neptune is at 3/4. All right, now we're going to do some subdividing. Now between Saturn and the Sun, I want to get the halfway point here. And the easiest way for me to do that is if I just take my paper and I'm going to fold it. Ooh, I can see my old sun on the other side. And then right at that fold, that's a half of a fourth. Half of a fourth is going to be 1/8. And right here at my 1/8 is Jupiter. Jupiter is kind of crazy colored. It's like, oh, using orange and red too much. It's actually really big. I should have made it bigger, but add some colors to it. Make it fancy. Kinda. And this is Jupiter. You might think, wow, I thought Jupiter was way farther out. Well, you can think that, but we'll start to notice that sometimes what we were thinking is pretty wrong on here. Then I need halfway between, so 1/8 and 0. Halfway between there is going to give me 1/16. Again, I'm going to fold this. And I'm going to put my little 1/16. And right here is our asteroid belt. Right there. And then I'm going to fold it in half again, and I'm going to get 1/32. Because that's half of 1/16. 1/32. And right there, if you can see, I'm going to put a little guy, and this one is red. We should probably recognize the red planet. I'm going to add a little arrow. Is Mars. That means between here of Mars and the sun, I need my other 3 rocky planets. So I'm going to put Earth, Venus, and Mercury. So I'm going to draw my little sign. I'm going to say Earth. You can see that, kind of. This one is Venus. And finally, Mercury. I'm add in some colors. Earth is kind of bluish. It's blue and green, to be honest. Hopefully you know that. Venus, what color is Venus? The one I'm looking at has it as like kind of red and crazy. I always thought it was kind of blue and greenish-ish. Let's see. What color haven't we used? I'll use a little bit of green for it. And then Mercury is kind of like brownish because it's all burned up from the sun. Huh. Now, a couple of things you can notice here is when they call these the inner planets, you can see how they are the inner planets because there is a whole lot of space in our solar system that is just empty, especially as you get farther out. And when you can see when we are launching probes and unmanned spacecrafts from Earth to Mars, it's a much shorter distance than if we had to go from Earth to Jupiter, Earth to Saturn, or all the way out to Uranus, or even out to Neptune. These places are really, really far. So it's not at all what I was thinking on my guesses. Now you can flip it over and kind of see that I had my planets kind of all evenly spaced-ish, kind of, like that. But it is way different. And now what I want you to do is you're going to take this, you're going to take a picture, and you're going to turn it in when you're done, as well as answer the questions that I posted on your sheet. Do your best to do some coloring. You do not have to color it like mine. You can look up what the colors are, supposed to be like, a little bit more accurate. But this, I think, is a pretty cool little representation of the spaces in our solar system. They are not spaced out. Lots of times when we see the solar system, hang on one second, I'm going to show you some of the pictures that sometimes we see. Hopefully this is going to work if I switch over. Cool. And if we do, if we search for solar system, it looks like these planets are right next to each other. Right? On this poster, they're like, whoa, look, Jupiter's touching Mars. And if we look back at what we made, there's a whole lot of space. These planets are way smaller, and these planets out here are so far apart. Our next activity that we're going to be looking at is actually going to look at the size relative to each other. So you can see a lot of these, look, these all look the same size. That's ridiculous. They are not the same size. Oops, you can't see because it's off to the side. And this one, it is way different because it looks like they're all the same. And that is not the case. Even on this one here, it looks like their orbits are all close together. And it's also true that they are almost never lined up like this correctly. They're always kind of spread apart on their little orbits. So take a picture of your little map that you made, and then post it to the assignment. There's also a second part, but that's going to be in a second video for you to be working on in a minute. I'm going to switch over to my other screen, and turn this in, and good luck.